The Creature Commandos are a team of soldiers in World War II who volunteered or were forced into an experiment that gives them the abilities and appearance of the classic Universal movie monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and others. They appeared in DC's Weird War Tales anthology series, where they were sent on various missions by the US government, such as rescuing a scientist from behind enemy lines, investigating an island full of dinosaurs, and slaughtering a bunch of brainwashed Nazi children! This is a real panel from a real comic that really exists, that I own, and I love everything about it. It is also way cooler than anything that occurs in the completely unrelated HBO Max animated original series of the same name by James Gunn. This show is also the first official entry into James Gunn's new DCU, his equivalent of the Marvel MCU, an interconnected series of films and TV shows all set in the same continuity. This is what got me to give this show a try, and also the first of many problems that the show has. This is how you start your big interconnected universe? Creature Commandos?
Where's good stuff, man?
A straight-to-streaming adult animated series based on an extremely obscure war comic from 45 years ago?
Are you nuts, dude? You need stuff to explode! Go boom!
Granted, as I said, he basically didn't bother adapting that book anyway, but if you're trying to get people excited for a new cinematic superhero franchise, this is a weak way to start. You really should have just led with Superman and worry about the rest later. If you've been following the reports of the DCU's announced slate of projects, you'll know that the ship is already sinking. Let's take a look at what we got here. Okay, so the original plan was to dump off all the old DCEU projects that they knew were bad but wouldn't admit, like Shazam and The Flash. But then supposedly there was a universal reset? I mean, I guess you could call Ezra Miller destroying the space-time continuum, his career, and cinema as an art form as a reset, but the movie didn't really address what was changed and what wasn't, and what the new film continuity is. Then Blue Beetle and Aquaman, 2 more duds. Then Creature Commandos. Then... What? Waller? Her own whole show? Just make a Suicide Squad show. That's what Peacemaker and Creature Commandos both are, essentially. And played by Viola Davis? What happened to a reset, James? Oh, or did you just mean a reset on every other filmmaker's hard work? You're in charge now, so everything you made and all the actors you like get to keep their jobs. Very diplomatic leadership there, bud. Not biased at all. And if you look at the rest of the slate, bias is the word of the day. 2 normal, logical choices with Superman and Green Lantern. Then, the Authority?
So you're gonna tell me that you don't have no black cats, no Roman candles, or screaming mimes? No.
Show of hands, right now, how many of you watching this are aware of what the Authority even is? So we're gonna get a fucked up alternate universe Justice League before we even get a Justice League? Dude, Warner Brothers, what are you doing? Do you hate money? Then Paradise Lost, what the fuck is that?
Oh, come on, man. You don't got no lady fingers, buzz buttles, snicker bombs, church burners, finger blasters, gut busters, zippity doo-dahs, or crap flappers?
A Themyscira prequel? So a Wonder Woman show without Wonder Woman. Great. Then we finally get a proper Batman movie with a Robin. But, oh wait, it's nobody's favorite Robin, Damian Wayne. Fuck! Then Booster Gold? Then Supergirl? And you cap it off with Swamp Thing?
You're gonna stand there, owning a fireworks stand, and tell me you don't have no whistling bungholes, no spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, Husker do's, Husker don'ts, cherry bombs, nipsy daisers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser?
What is the plan here? Well, it doesn't matter anymore because the plan has changed several times since this announcement. As of March 2025, the only confirmed projects currently in production or post-production are Superman, Supergirl, Lanterns, Peacemaker Season 2, Lord help me, and Clayface! They have no plan. They're just grasping at straws here. Honestly, I'm going to do James a favor and tell him what his canon is since he doesn't seem to understand how it works. Superman. That's it. That's where your universe starts, and until it's successful, you have nothing else. The reason I'm going so hard on Gunn here is because not only is he a known fibber, but he is also a very particular man with very particular tastes. He likes what he likes, and he's not ashamed of it. And that's all well and good. But now that you've been given the keys to the kingdom of DC on film, you have to be a little more mature and think about what the wider audience likes.
Well, that might be your problem. It's not what you like, it's the consumer.
Most of these projects are things that James likes specifically from DC Comics, not necessarily things the audience likes or that make sense to start with when you're building a cinematic universe. Just like how he picked the actors he liked and wanted to retain from Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. The fans wanted Henry Cavill back as Superman, but James didn't, so Henry lost a job. But James likes Viola Davis and John Cena and James' wife, Jennifer Holland, so they all get to stay. Do you think people don't see exactly what you're doing? How are the audience supposed to trust or respect your integrity or decision-making as the head creative executive at DC when you make such openly biased decisions that benefit you and your friends and not the fans that you're supposed to be making stories for and expecting to give you money in return? But anyway, that's all meta-criticism over the business practices and decision-making of these future projects. The real reason I bring all of this up is that James Gunn doesn't think these decisions affect the canon of the stories he's telling or the audience's perception of them. And Creature Commandos is a perfect example of this complete disregard for canon or for audience immersion. The problem this show creates for itself immediately is that it is both canon to the previous DCEU and to James Gunn's new DCU. James tells you that this is fine and to just ignore it and let him have his toys. I say, no fucking way. Don't get me wrong, I don't have any love for the DCEU. I have no problem telling you that not a single film from that universe is good. Not one. But James wants to be able to shit all over that film series, reboot it, and then pick all the scraps of things he made in that universe out of the garbage heap, dust them off, and tell you they're still good to eat. And I say no. The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and anything that features Viola Davis as Amanda Waller are DCEU canon. That means every project James makes with his darlings from those two shows in it is DCEU canon, not DCU canon. Snyder's Justice League appears in the final episode of Peacemaker. Amanda Waller is in Black Adam and Shazam 2. You should have made it a clean break, James, and killed all your darlings, but you wanted to have what you wanted, and you expected the audience to just wipe their memories of that previous canon and accept whatever bullshit you spoon-feed them. I may not have been a huge fan of the Snyderverse, but there's a huge portion of the DC fanbase who are, and who loved Henry Cavill's Superman. And you basically just told all those fans to go fuck themselves, but you also expect them to pretend your universe makes sense. It doesn't. Congratulations, James, your cinematic brainchild is stillborn. It's dead before you even release your first film. Whether he wants to admit it or not, this will be a flaw in all future projects of his, if he continues to use actors and designs and events from that continuity as canon in his new universe. And I will continue to call it out as such. Now that I got all that out of my system, we can go through the show and see how many problems it has. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. Without further ado, let's jump right in. We open up at Belle Rev Correctional, where a convenient news report is doing Amanda Waller's exposition for her.
The battalion, calling themselves the Sons of Themyscira, violently crossed the border into Pakistan. The Sons are said to be working at the behest of the rogue Amazonian and reputed sorceress Circe. Circe claims to be the rightful heir to the throne of the perhaps mythical, perhaps real, all-female island nation of Themyscira.
Ah, yes, Circe. Not an Amazonian, not heir to the throne, and too damn good a character for this show. But we do learn that in this universe, the status of Themyscira and the Amazons is dubious to the general public, even though they show a photo of a bunch of Amazons on Themyscira and they are posing for the photograph even though nobody is allowed to go there. Then we get a look at the Sons of Themyscira. Oh boy. Now, I had never heard of these guys until this show, so I looked them up, and in the New 52, the Sons were literally the discarded offspring of the Amazons who, when they went out on mating voyages and came back pregnant with boys instead of girls, intended to kill them in their cribs. The Greek god Hephaestus made a deal with Queen Hippolyta to trade the Sons for his fine weapons and raise them as his apprentices in his forge. I haven't read this comic, but that's a pretty interesting idea, actually. How do the Amazons keep their culture alive, and what do they do when they have sons and not daughters? A very interesting question that, while I can't speak to the execution of in that comic, still sounds like a story worth exploring. But James Gunn decided that he didn't give a shit about that writer's idea and used them as a joke to mock somebody. Someone, or a group of someones, that James doesn't like and finds it worthwhile to spend several years and millions of dollars making a show about how much they suck and how sexist they are instead of just blocking them on Twitter. I'm not going to attribute specific ideological motivation here, but if you've spent any time on the internet or seen a meme before, I think you get the idea. If you're a man, potentially straight and white, and are perceived as being sexist or misogynist or radical or right-wing, this is you. Neckbeards, incels, Proud Boys, Snyderverse fans, YouTubers who make videos making fun of James Gunn. Choose your preferred group of hated males on the internet. The Sons are a Rorschach test of whichever type of guys you hate most. Especially if they use terms like woke feminist. You're a millionaire filmmaker, James. You don't think this is just a little bit beneath you? No? Good. As long as we're both on the same page here. Taking the low road is fine with me. And it wouldn't be so bad if you hadn't done this joke right before showing us Rick Flag Sr., who looks pretty much exactly like a buff power fantasy version of James Gunn with his exact white hair and beard. This is the billion-dollar corporation equivalent of, I drew myself as the Chad and you as the Soyjack, therefore I win the argument. Amanda says that they're helping Pekolistan because they are a backwards-ass country that's never taken advantage of their natural resources in reference to the petroleum fields that they are willing to give the U.S. control over in exchange for protection. Well, that move in and of itself shows an ability to take advantage of valuable resources through bargaining, so you're wrong, but I'm guessing she means they're a third-world country without much industry or infrastructure. Noted. But why on earth would you use a team of supervillains like Task Force X for a protection detail? Cersei's pretty powerful, so I know Special Forces would probably be a waste, but isn't there at least one government-friendly superhero who might help out? Like Captain Atom? Or Wonder Woman, since it's her villain in the first place? According to Flag, Peacemaker is definitely canon because Waller's daughter exposing Amanda's use of Peacemaker and Vigilante to cover up Project Butterfly means that she is no longer allowed to use human prisoners as mission operatives, thus setting up the premise for the show. Badly. You'll see why in a minute. Amanda's new plan is to, arguably, circumvent Congress's order not to use human prisoners by picking operatives for Task Force X who don't legally qualify as humans. Okay, good luck arguing that in front of the Supreme Court for your violation of human rights trial, because if these prisoners are not human, that means they didn't get arrested or tried because those are civil rights reserved for humans. Which means instead, Argus just scooped these guys up and choppered them off to a black site without informing her superiors, which is just as bad as forcing human prisoners to risk their lives in combat zones because I highly doubt Congress would agree that these people don't qualify as human just because you say so. I certainly don't. First, we meet the bride. Flag immediately asks how she's not human, and Amanda says, "Is a corpse human?" Yes, especially if it's a human corpse. Arguably, she is several humans, and we're going to find out very quickly and repeatedly throughout the show that the whole human-non-human thing is never actually defined and is wildly inconsistent. Next, we get Dr. Phosphorus, a meta-human, hint hint, who has radioactive skin and can generate intense heat. Then she makes a joke about Rick's hesitance to be near a walking isotope and doesn't bother actually providing radiation protection. Also, how the fuck can he be using his powers right now inside a prison? No power dampener for your highly deadly non-human prisoner who hates you? Fuck security protocols, am I right? Oh, great, Weasel is back. I mean, I don't hate him, but he was a joke from the Suicide Squad. One James was very clearly proud of and couldn't bear to part with. He's technically not human in this version, I guess, even though he is in the comics. We also use him to canonize that film because they mention Rick Flag Jr. dying on that mission, which is an excellent time to bring up this point. Rick Flag Sr. How the fuck is he alive, here, still active military, and our protagonist? Typically in the comics, Flag Sr. died during a mission when Jr. was young, inspiring him to join the military like his father and serve his country. Now, Jr. is dead and we get a 60-year-old general in peak physical condition who's going on active missions despite his incredibly high rank? You might as well have just pretended Flag didn't die at this point. Moving on to G.I. Robot, definitely not human, also possibly broken as his programming detects a swastika in a stack of Jenga blocks that is definitely not there. He is also specifically programmed to hunt Nazis, not follow orders or target enemy combatants, just Nazis. I wonder what you're gonna do with that. Anyway, Wait, what the fuck? Why the fuck does he have bullets for his gun arms in prison? I had the same problem with X-Men 97, even though I kind of liked that show. Stop animating your characters using their insanely dangerous powers in casual situations like it's no big deal just because it looks cool. Everything you show the audience has significance, and I'm not going to ignore it just because you couldn't control yourself. That prisoner has a loaded machine gun in his cell. Do I need to explain why that's bad security protocol? Fuck! Finally, Nina. Amanda makes up a bunch of bullshit things about her to keep Rick's confidence up because Amanda in this universe is a brain-dead poser who apparently got to her position entirely by luck. Amanda opens the cell to introduce Rick to his team, and the three most violent prisoners immediately attack them. I like that. Except Amanda hits the button on her phone, we went back to that instead of the switches, which were definitely better, and shocks everyone in the room. So now the control chips shock you instead of blowing you up, and not just one at a time, but all at once regardless of who deserved it. Dumb. But also, if Dr. Phosphorus is radioactive, how does his chip even work? The radiation would have shorted out the electronics or burnt it up the minute you injected him. I genuinely don't think he's the type of prisoner you can contain and send on missions. He's way too OP. He's the kind of guy you bury in a special cell deep underground. Also, if the bride was brought to life with electricity, would zapping her even hurt her or slow her down at all? And then we get our show intro and theme, which is pretty cool looking and the music is fun. Anyway, now that our main cast is introduced, I can point out the obvious. This is not Creature Commandos. This is just Suicide Squad again with uglier members, some of whom were in the Frankenstein Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic. But the premise of the show and all the characters involved have absolutely nothing to do with Creature Commandos. The closest are G.I. Robot, who went on a couple of missions with the team but was never an official member, and Nina, who in the New 52 Shade series was a scientist who created that version of the Commandos. This is just a poorly justified Task Force X because James Gunn is a one-trick pony who doesn't know how to write anything new or adapt anything properly. Also, ew! James! You animated yourself writing this garbage in the opening credits? Cringe! So then they go. They get on a helicopter and waste some time with some unfunny jokes that further ruin everyone's character, like G.I. Robot being worried about secret Nazis around every corner, confirming further that his programming is either flawed or damaged because why the fuck would a weasel man be a Nazi? The bride hints that she has some past connection to Pokolistan, how very convenient, and we montage our way to the castle. Yes, the backwards-ass third world country has a castle. And an airport. And electricity. And high-tech modern APCs with a well-equipped military escort vanguarded by knights in power armor with lasers and jetpacks. Oh, go fuck yourself, backwards-ass country, my ass! Why the hell do they need the US's protection at all, and why are they giving up their oil that they clearly fucking use? They have cars and every other modern amenity. We're 5 minutes in and you've undone every premise you've set up. None of this should be happening by the show's own logic. They get to the castle and literally everybody makes an absolute fool out of the battle-hardened military commander of the squad, including the princess's head of security, who thought it would be hilarious to pretend to execute the military liaison to the country they're begging for help from. Because everything is a fucking joke to James Gunn, especially his own characters he wants you to care about. This is the guy we expect to treat Superman and Batman with respect? Don't get your hopes up, guys. They have dinner, and then I have to keep asking stupid questions, like, if these guys are not human, why do they need to eat? Phosphorus, from what I have looked up, doesn't need to. His organs are either gone or nuclear-powered. The bride is supposedly dead, but all of her bodily functions seem intact. She breathes, speaks, eats, drinks, and if she does those two things, she almost certainly goes to the bathroom. I'm seeing nothing besides her appearance that would lead me to believe any legal body would not simply classify her as human. And G.I. Robot runs on diesel, apparently? Pretty dumb for a frontline robot meant to go on covert military ops, but okay. We waste time in the courtyard with G.I. doing his best to wear out that Nazi joke. Weasel is gearing up for a retcon by being a cute, playful man-doggo. And Rick flirting with the princess who says her country views progress as corrupt. I might agree with that, or I might not, because you didn't actually say anything. Be more vague so nobody knows what the hell you mean. That's good writing. Here's a question that needs answering. Is Phosphorus on fire or not? Can he control how hot or radioactive he is? Because sometimes he can touch normal stuff without burning it, and other times he says he can't. More on that later, I hope. Nina plays pathetic little sister to the bride while she leaves to do a thing at Castle Frankenstein, which is now in this made-up country instead of Germany, where it actually is. Phosphorus sneaks into Rick's room to get the phone that controls their chips, which he left in a fucking drawer instead of just keeping on him at all times. Phosphorus doesn't immediately smash it the minute he finds it so that Rick can catch him and they can have a big fight that Rick should definitely lose and die from. I mean, Rick punches him and is immediately burned, and we see a similar result later when someone else attacks him. So how do his clothes not just burn off? Shouldn't he be naked or have a special containment suit like Nina? He also recovers from a broken neck. Fucking hell, so can he not die? Then Rick is fucked. He's nuclear and super strong and he can't die, you're fucked. But then Rick gets the phone back and spooky Skellington gets scared of a small electrical shock from a chip that shouldn't even fucking work. Ugh. I like Dr. Phosphorus a lot. He's a cool character, but he shouldn't be in the show. That phone should short out from the radiation the minute it's within 5 feet of him. There's no way that they could control or contain him out of his cell, and he's way too fucking OP. The bride, Anita, go to the castle, and a gypsy woman across the street sees them and calls her benefactor, Frankenstein, to tell him the bride has come home. And despite it seeming like he's been living it up on a yacht full of sexy bikini girls, he cries at the knowledge that he has found her at last. Oh boy, what did they do to you, Frank? And there you have it, episode 1 of Creature Commandos. It's not great. I only watched it because it was supposed to be the first entry in the DCU ahead of Superman, and I only read the comic after that because of how brain-dead and nonsensical the show is. Once again, a big mainstream adaptation of an obscure, niche comic book that changes everything about it and fills it with juvenile humor and pop music to trick the normie portion of the audience into thinking it's brilliant. And it doesn't get better from here, unfortunately, which I will tell you all about in my next video covering episode 2. Yes, I will be doing regular videos, I hope, covering each episode of Creature Commandos from now until I finish, which should all be relatively short and quick to come out, fingers crossed. I also have a few other projects I may begin my research work on while I'm getting these finished. Thank you so much to everyone who watched this and to any of my recent subscribers. Getting direct feedback from you has been a big motivator in coming up with more to talk about here on the channel. So thank you again, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye!
Why is that good? You might as well ask, why is the tree good? Why is the sunset good? Why are boobs good?